The plan to access Ethan's personal laptop felt like something out of a spy movie, minus the cool gadgets and a guaranteed escape route. Maya had laid it out with chilling precision. Ethan had a weekly standing Tuesday night basketball game with his old college buddies. That gave us a 3-hour window max. My role was to ensure he left on time, unsuspecting, while Maya, with her surprisingly adept tech skills, honed from dealing with digital evidence in her legal cases, would attempt to bypass his security. The risk was immense. If we were caught, any legal leverage I had could be compromised. But the thought of him and Olivia, their smug deceit, their stolen moments funded by a life I helped build, was a sharper spur than any fear. Tuesday night arrived with an almost unbearable tension. I feigned a headache, wishing Ethan a fun game, my voice a perfect imitation of a slightly weary but supportive wife. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, Maya slipped in through the back door, a slim backpack containing her laptop and a few specialized tools. "Showtime, partner," she whispered, a grim smile on her face. My heart was a trapped bird against my ribs, but my hands were steady as I led her to Ethan's home office, that meticulously organized, now deeply suspect sanctuary of his. Ethan's laptop was, as expected, password protected. But Maya had anticipated this, armed with a few common exploit techniques and a software tool she'd acquired. Watching her work was like watching a surgeon, focused, precise, her fingers flying across her keyboard. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Every creak of the old brownstone, every distant siren sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. What if he forgot something and came back? What if his game was canceled? Then, a soft click. Maya let out a small, triumphant hiss. "We're in." The desktop was an anodyne landscape of corporate logos and family photos, a horrifyingly normal facade. But Maya wasn't interested in the surface. She dove straight into his financial software, his cloud storage, and his encrypted email archives. And Pandora's box began to creak open. It started with the hidden credit card statements, ones I'd never seen, linked to an offshore account I never knew existed. The charges were a sickening litany: lavish dinners for two at places Ethan claimed he hated, weekend getaways to boutique hotels listed as business trips, and then, the kicker, regular substantial money transfers to a numbered account, with vague references like Project O or monthly support. The dates aligned perfectly with Olivia's sudden influx of designer clothes, her new apartment, and her carefree lifestyle. Ethan wasn't just having an affair, he was bankrolling a double life, using money that was, in part, mine. But the real bombshell lay deeper, in a folder cryptically named Contingencies. Inside, Maya found scanned documents, offshore investment schemes, and emails detailing transfers of significant sums of money from Ethan's company accounts into his personal offshore accounts. It wasn't just marital deceit. This smelled like embezzlement, serious white-collar crime. He wasn't just a cheating husband, he was a potential felon. The sheer scale of his duplicity was breathtaking, far beyond a simple affair or even the cruelty of the baby deception. He had built his entire life, our life, on a mountain of lies, propped up by stolen money. "Oh, Ethan," Maya breathed, scrolling through a particularly damning email chain between him and an offshore bank. "You haven't just been a bad husband, you've been a very, very stupid criminal." The air left my lungs in a rush. This changed everything. This wasn't just about a broken heart or a betrayed marriage anymore. This was about significant financial fraud. The knowledge was a heavy, cold weight, yet simultaneously a powerful, undeniable weapon. The azoospermia was a personal betrayal. This financial fraud was a betrayal with far-reaching public consequences. My path forward, which had seemed like a murky swamp, suddenly had a very clear, very decisive direction. "Maya," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I think it's time we arranged a little family meeting, and I think your legal expertise will be very much in demand." The family meeting wasn't a tearful confrontation over a dining table, as one might expect from a domestic drama. No, Maya advised a more strategic, legally sound approach. A meticulously crafted legal letter outlining Ethan's documented infertility, Olivia's affair with Liam Slater, backed by Carol's irrefutable photographic evidence, and a preliminary summary of the suspicious financial activities, was dispatched simultaneously to Ethan at his office and to Olivia at her new Ethan-funded apartment. It was a declaration of war, delivered not with a shout, but with the cold, hard precision of a legal document. The fallout was immediate, and in some ways deeply satisfying to witness, albeit from a distance. I had temporarily moved in with Maya, needing the space and her unwavering support. The first call came from Ethan, not an hour after the letters would have been delivered by courier. His voice, usually so smooth and confident, was a frantic, high-pitched squeak. "Sarah, what is this? What are you doing? This is insane. We need to talk, just us." There was no apology, no remorse, just pure, unadulterated panic at being caught. "There's nothing to talk about, Ethan," I'd replied, my voice a calm counterpoint to his hysteria. "Everything that needs to be said is in that letter. My lawyer will be in touch regarding divorce proceedings." Then I hung up, severing that line of communication with a decisive click. Olivia's reaction, relayed to me by a very shaken Carol who had been tasked with observing her, was more theatrical. Apparently, upon receiving the letter, she'd had a full-blown meltdown in the lobby of her chic apartment building, screaming about conspiracies and lies, much to the alarm of her neighbors. Carol's report mentioned Olivia frantically calling Ethan, then Liam, then our mother, her voice escalating with each unanswered call. It seemed the carefully constructed narrative of her miracle pregnancy with my devoted husband was crumbling faster than a sandcastle in a tsunami. The most painful confrontation, however, was yet to come. Our mother. She arrived at Maya's apartment unannounced 2 days later, her face a mask of anguish and disapproval. "Sarah, how could you do this to your sister?" she began, not even a word of concern for me, her actual betrayed daughter. The old, familiar sting of her favoritism was a dull ache now, no longer a fresh wound. "Olivia is pregnant. She's vulnerable. And Ethan, he's your husband." "Was, Mother. He was my husband," I corrected, my voice quiet but firm. "And Olivia is carrying another man's child, a child conceived while she was actively trying to destroy my marriage and pass him off as Ethan's heir." I laid out copies of the photos of Olivia and Liam, the timeline of their affair. Her denial was stubborn, almost pathological. "There must be a mistake. Liam is a good boy. Olivia wouldn't lie like that. Ethan loves you." It was like talking to a brick wall, a wall that had always been tilted in Olivia's favor. "Mother," I said, my patience wearing thin, "the evidence is undeniable. But more than that, the betrayal is undeniable." I then showed her a heavily redacted summary of Ethan's financial duplicity. Not the embezzlement details yet, just the extent of his spending on Olivia, the secret accounts. Her face, already pale, turned ashen. For the first time, a flicker of something other than blind defense for Olivia crossed her features. Perhaps a dawning horror at the scale of the deception, or maybe, just maybe, a sliver of realization about the kind of man her favored son-in-law truly was. "I am divorcing Ethan," I stated, "and I am cutting Olivia out of my life. You can choose to stand by the truth, or you can choose to stand by them, but you can't do both." That was my ultimatum, delivered not with malice, but with the weary finality of someone who had finally, irrevocably, had enough. She left without another word, tears streaming down her face, but whether they were for me, for Olivia, or for the ruin of her own idealized family image, I couldn't tell. And strangely, I found I didn't much care anymore. The weeks following my ultimatum to my mother, and by extension, to the fractured remnants of what I once called family, were a strange cocktail of liberation and lingering grief. The silence from their end was deafening, a stark confirmation of the choices they'd made, or perhaps were too cowardly to unmake. Maya handled the initial divorce filings with Ethan's lawyer, a brisk, impersonal exchange of paperwork that felt anticlimactic after the emotional carnage. There were no more desperate calls from him, no tearful apologies, just the cold, hard machinery of legal dissolution grinding forward. I moved out of the brownstone within a week. Maya helped me find a small, sun-drenched apartment overlooking a park in a different neighborhood, a place Anilos with no ghosts of Ethan or Olivia. Packing up 5 years of my life into sterile cardboard boxes was a brutal but cleansing ritual. Each item I touched, a wedding photo, a souvenir from a trip we'd taken, a piece of furniture I'd lovingly chosen, was a fresh stab, but also a release. Some things I stored, unable to part with the memories they held, however tainted. Others, like his clothes and Olivia's carelessly forgotten trinkets, I donated without a second thought, a symbolic purging. My design business, which had languished during the months of emotional turmoil, became my sanctuary. I threw myself into new projects with a focus I hadn't realized I'd lost. There was a clarity in lines and colors, a satisfaction in creating beauty from blank spaces that soothed the raw edges of my heart. My clients noticed the change, a new boldness in my designs, a more confident energy in my presentations. It was as if shedding the dead weight of my marriage had unshackled a part of my creativity I hadn't known was constrained. This was the first true sign of the phoenix stirring within the ashes. But healing isn't a linear path. There were nights when the silence of my new apartment would press in, and the phantom limb of Ethan's presence beside me in bed would ache with an almost unbearable intensity. There were moments when I'd see a woman laughing with her sister or a couple cooing over a baby, and a fresh wave of bitterness and loss would wash over me. The azoospermia report, a fact, a weapon, was also a constant, cruel reminder of the children I might never have, a dream Ethan had allowed me to chase while knowing it was a lie for him. These were the scars, I realized, the ones that would likely never fully fade, even as the wounds themselves closed. One afternoon, while sketching designs for a new client, a children's bookstore, I found myself idly drawing a small, intricate bird, its wings spread wide, rising from a swirl of what looked like flames. I hadn't consciously intended it. It just appeared on the page. Looking at it, a sense of profound, almost painful understanding washed over me. I had been burned, yes, reduced to cinders by their betrayal. But I was not destroyed. I was, in fact, just beginning to learn how to fly again, on my own terms, with my own wings, scarred but stronger. The legal battles with Ethan, the full exposure of his financial crimes, Olivia's ultimate fate, those were still to come. But in that quiet moment, with the scent of graphite and new paper in the air, I knew, with a certainty that resonated deep in my soul, that Sarah, the woman they tried to break, was truly, finally, ready for whatever came next. Sarah is ready, but are Ethan and Olivia? The evidence is mounting, the legal noose is tightening. Part 4 will bring the final public reckoning. Witness the courtroom drama, the devastating exposure of financial crimes, and the ultimate fate of those who thought they could get away with their web of lies. Will Sarah get the justice she deserves, or will one last desperate act from her tormentors try to pull her back into the fire? The explosive finale is coming. What kind of justice do you think Sarah truly deserves after everything she's been through? And what do you predict will be Ethan and Olivia's ultimate downfall? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm eager to hear your predictions for the finale. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're rooting for Sarah, subscribe, and ring the notification bell, because you absolutely do not want to miss the epic conclusion in Part 4. It's going to be a takedown for the ages.